The accidental sugar baby continued. Orm was dizzy from the way Lingling kissed her, deep, consuming, endless, like she'd been starving for her, like she was devouring every sound that slipped from Orm's lips. Orm had never been kissed like this before, like someone was losing themselves in her, like nothing else mattered. Lingling's hands were everywhere, firm against her waist, skimming up her sides, fingertips pressing into her skin just enough to make her shiver. Orm's head tipped back against the couch, breathless, wrecked. Lingling followed, trailing heated kisses down her throat, over her collarbone, her lips brushing every inch of exposed skin. A low, satisfied hum vibrated against Orm's pulse as Lingling whispered, "You feel even better than I imagined." Orm's breath hitched. "Oh, you imagine this?" Lingling chuckled darkly, pressing her body closer, pinning Orm beneath her, letting her feel exactly how much she wanted her. Orm's head spun. God, she was so in trouble. Her hand slid beneath Lingling's silk blouse, feeling the warm, taut muscle beneath, the sharp intake of breath Lingling took when Orm's nails dragged against her skin. "I imagined a lot of things," Lingling murmured, lips brushing against Orm's ear. "Want me to show you?" Orm nearly lost it. She crashed their mouths together again, more desperate this time, more feverish, hands roaming, nails scraping, bodies pressing so close, she wasn't sure where she ended, and Lingling began. Lingling's grip tightened, fingers digging into her thigh as she guided Orm against her. Slow, deliberate, Orm moaned into her mouth, gripping Lingling's shoulders like she was the only thing keeping her grounded. And maybe she was, because nothing else existed in this moment. Just Lingling's body against hers, her breath hot against Orm's skin, the way she murmured her name like it was the only thing that mattered. Orm had never been handled like this before, like she was something to be explored, unraveled, adored. And Lingling looked absolutely wrecked, like she was finally losing control. Orm's fingers tangled in Lingling's hair, pulling her even closer as she whispered, "Take me." Lingling groaned, low, deep, desperate, and then she did. Orm didn't know where she ended, and Lingling began. All she knew was heat. Lingling's lips seared a path down her throat, every kiss and bite making her arch, tremble, gasp. Her name slipped past Lingling's lips, low, reverent, wrecked. Orm was barely breathing. Lingling's hands slid beneath the fabric of her shirt, fingers splaying wide across her bare skin, exploring, claiming. She moved deliberately, torturously slow, like she was memorizing every inch, savoring every reaction. And Orm was losing her mind. She needed more, her fingers tangled in Lingling's silk blouse, yanking it over her head with a desperate pull, revealing smooth, golden skin beneath. She froze. Lingling was breathtaking. Muscle and grace, elegance and fire, all of it wrapped in a woman who was looking at her like she was the only thing in the world that mattered. Orm swallowed, voice unsteady. "You're so unfairly gorgeous." Lingling smirked, leaning down until their noses brushed. "So are you," she whispered, voice thick with want. Then she captured Orm's lips again, deeper, hungrier, stealing the air from her lungs, pressing her down until she felt completely claimed. Orm gasped against her mouth as Lingling's hips rolled, slow and deliberate, sending a jolt of pleasure up her spine. "Oh my God," Orm whimpered, clutching at Lingling's back, nails digging in. Lingling groaned, lips trailing down to her shoulder, her collarbone, lower, lower, lower. Orm's head tipped back, fingers curling into Lingling's hair, every touch setting. "Her on fire! I can't—" Orm gasped, barely holding on. Lingling hushed her with a kiss, soft at first, then deep, devouring, unstoppable. "You don't have to," she murmured against her lips. And then she made Orm fall apart, completely, utterly, shattered, under her touch. The room was silent except for the sound of heavy breathing. Orm lay sprawled across Lingling's chest, both of them thoroughly wrecked, tangled in sheets, limbs still lazily intertwined. Her body hummed, still sensitive, still remembering every place Lingling had touched, kissed, claimed. She felt boneless, weightless, utterly ruined. Lingling beneath her exhaled slowly, sated, warm, fingertips tracing lazy circles against Orm's bare back. Holy shit, Orm muttered into Lingling's skin. I think you just ruined me. Lingling chuckled, low and smug. Oh, sweetheart, I barely got started. Orm shivered. Dangerous. This woman was so dangerous. Lingling pressed a slow, lingering kiss to the top of Orm's head, fingertips dancing along her spine, sending little aftershocks through her. Feeling alive? Lingling murmured, voice teasing. Satisfied. Orm groaned, too exhausted to move. Feeling like I need to take up yoga just to survive you. Lingling laughed, tipping Orm's chin up so their eyes met. You're trouble, Lingling mused, brushing a soft, almost tender kiss. Against Orm's lips, Orm smirked against her mouth. Says you, Lingling hummed. Fair. They stayed like that for a while, bodies tangled, warmth shared, breathing sinking. Lingling's fingers traced absent-minded shapes against Orm's skin, and Orm, for the first time in a long time, felt safe. This wasn't just heat and pleasure, it was something else, something dangerous, because she was falling, and she didn't know if Lingling would catch her. Orm didn't want to move, didn't want to leave the warmth of Lingling's arms, the way their bodies still fit together so perfectly. Lingling, usually so composed, so powerful, was soft right now. Her head rested against the pillow, dark hair spilling in messy waves, her lips slightly parted as she breathed slow and deep. Orm traced a lazy finger down the curve of Lingling's shoulder, just because she could. Lingling sighed at the touch, eyes still closed, voice husky. Careful, sweetheart. A smirk tugged at her lips. You keep touching me like that, and we won't be getting any sleep. Orm grinned, unbothered. Who said I wanted sleep? Lingling chuckled, finally cracking an eye open. You're insatiable. Orm shrugged, shameless. Can you blame me? Lingling tilted Orm's chin up, pressing a slow, lingering kiss to her lips. Not at all. They fell into a comfortable silence, Lingling's fingers tracing idle patterns against Orm's bare back, soothing, addictive. Orm sighed happily. I think I like being your sugar baby. Lingling froze. Just for a second. Then, a smirk, a playful glint in her eyes. Do you? Orm, completely unaware she was playing with fire, grinned. Are you kidding? She stretched, deliberately slow, deliberately teasing. A gorgeous, insanely powerful woman taking care of me, spoiling. Me making me feel like this? She gestured vaguely at their tangled bodies. Best mistake of my life, her brain says. Lingling chuckled, rolling over until she was on top of Orm again, pinning her down. Orm's breath hitched. Lingling leaned in, lips grazing her ear, voice a seductive whisper. You're playing a dangerous game, sweetheart. Orm shivered, grinning. I like danger. Lingling pulled back just enough to lock eyes with her, studying her, teasing her. Then, softly, unexpectedly. She brushed a strand of hair from Orm's face, tucking it behind her ear. Orm's heart skipped. Lingling's fingers lingered on her, cheek for a second longer before she sighed, amused. Fine, she murmured. If you want to be spoiled, you'll be spoiled. Orm beamed. I love that for me. Lingling rolled her eyes, but the fondness was unmistakable. Go to sleep, brat. Orm grinned, snuggling closer. Only if you hold me. Lingling chuckled, wrapping her arms around Orm without hesitation, without question, and for the first time in a long time, Orm felt safe, warm, adored. She closed her eyes, smiling, completely unaware that this entire lie was about to blow up in her face. Orm was living the dream. A luxury hotel suite, room service, silk robes, a ridiculously comfortable bed, and, of course, Lingling. Gorgeous, powerful, insanely good in bed Lingling. Orm should have known it wouldn't last, because the universe loved chaos. And today, chaos arrived in a $5,000 designer dress and 6-inch stilettos. Her name was Madame Jo, and she was apparently the owner of the high-class sugar baby agency Lingling had hired Orm from, which of course was news to Orm. Madame Jo swept into the hotel lobby like she owned the building, trailed by a prim assistant clutching a clipboard and an intimidatingly expensive handbag. She spotted Orm lounging by the infinity pool, sipping a mimosa in her borrowed silk robe, and zeroed in like a missile. "There you are!" Madame Jo clapped her hands together, beaming. "I've been meaning to check in on our top-tier girl." Orm choked on her drink. Top-tier what now? She barely had time to panic before Madame Jo turned to Lingling, who had just emerged from the water, sun-kissed and effortlessly stunning. "CEO Kwong, a pleasure as always. I assume Orm has been meeting your expectations?" Lingling, calm as ever, arched a brow. "Expectations?" Madame Jo laughed, oblivious. "Oh, you know how it is. We always ensure our sugar babies give the full premium experience. We pride ourselves on discretion and quality." Orm's soul left her body. Lingling's smile did not reach her eyes. Madame Jo turned back to Orm. "And I must say, Orm, you are an absolute delight. I was surprised when you entered the scene. Most of our girls are far more polished." She eyed Orm's messy bun and mismatched flip-flops. Orm sweat. "But hey!" Madame Jo patted her arm, oblivious to the disaster unfolding. "Lingling has always liked a bit of a challenge, haven't you, dear?" Lingling's eyes were locked on Orm now. Orm could see the gears turning, calculating, realizing. "Oh," Lingling murmured. "Oh." Madame Jo finally sensed the shift in the air. "Is something wrong?" Lingling turned to Orm, voice deceptively calm. "Orm." Orm panicked. "Yes, my dearest, most benevolent provider of wealth and affection?" Silence. Lingling exhaled sharply. "You're not a sugar baby?" Orm bit her lip. "Define sugar baby." Lingling's eye twitched. Madame Jo gasped. "You mean to tell me?" She whirled on Orm. "You're not one of mine?" Orm grinned weakly. "Plot twist?" Silence. Then, Lingling turned on her heel and walked away. "Wait! Where are you going?" Orm called after her. Lingling didn't stop. "To rethink every decision I've ever made," she said, voice dangerously even. Orm scrambled after her, barely avoiding a full-blown collapse into the pool. "Lingling, come on, it's not that bad." "You got a free trial." Lingling stopped dead. Orm slapped a hand over her own mouth. Lingling slowly turned. "A free trial?" Orm took a step back. Poor choice of words. Lingling closed her eyes, inhaled, exhaled, then, without another word, she kept walking, straight into the elevator, straight out of Orm's life. Orm stood there, heart pounding, watching the doors slide shut. Oh, she was so screwed. 3 days. That was how long Lingling had successfully avoided Orm, which, considering Orm's chaotic tendencies and complete lack of shame, was honestly impressive. But the universe? Oh, the universe was a messy little matchmaker, because on day 4, Orm crashed, literally, back into Lingling's life. Location: a high-profile charity gala. Victim: Lingling's dignity. Lingling, dressed in a custom-made designer gown that screamed power and money, was in the middle of a conversation with investors when crash. The doors to the grand ballroom flew open with enough force to startle the entire room, and there, in the entrance, stood Orm, drenched barefoot, holding a small, very angry cat. The room went dead silent. Orm, panting slightly, locked eyes with Lingling. Lingling blinked. Orm blinked back. Then, as if this moment couldn't get any worse, the cat hissed and launched itself at the nearest billionaire. Chaos erupted, waiters scrambled. Investors screamed. Expensive champagne hit the floor. And Lingling? Lingling closed her eyes and accepted her fate. Because, of course, Orm would show up like this. 5 minutes later, Orm sat in Lingling's private car, dripping rainwater. onto the leather seats while Lingling stared at her with the expression of a woman questioning all her life choices. So, Orm said, squeezing water from her sleeve. Funny story. Lingling pinched the bridge of her nose. Orm. Yes, my terrifyingly beautiful ex-sugar mommy? Lingling's eye twitched. Why were you at my event? Orm grinned weakly. Okay, so technically I wasn't invited, but Lingling exhaled sharply. Of course you weren't. Orm held up a finger. But fate wanted us back together, so I broke in, entered with enthusiasm. Lingling sighed, exasperated. And the cat? Orm looked away. Unrelated. Lingling gave her a look. Orm caved immediately. Fine. I found him outside looking cold and abandoned, like me when you walked out of my life. Lingling stared. Orm stared back. Silence. Then, Lingling laughed. It started as a quiet chuckle, then grew into something uncontrollable, until she was actually laughing like Orm hadn't heard before. Orm gasped dramatically. Are you laughing? Is this a miracle? Did I just witness the Ice Queen melting? Lingling rolled her eyes, still smiling. Orm's heart skipped. God, she was so gone for this woman. Lingling shook her head, sighing. You are a disaster. Orm grinned. But I'm your disaster. Lingling went quiet. Orm held her breath. Then, after a long pause, Lingling tilted Orm's chin up, eyes locked onto hers. Prove it, she murmured. Orm's heart pounded. And then, Lingling kissed her. Deep, claiming, devastating. Orm melted into her, into them, into this ridiculous, chaotic, perfect mess. The universe knew what it was doing after all. Orm barely had time to breathe before Lingling pulled her closer, deeper, completely wrecking her. The car ride? A blur. The moment Lingling dragged Orm into her penthouse, pure, desperate, uncontrollable heat. Orm's back hit the door before she could even think. Lingling's hands already on her, already reclaiming every inch she had missed. 3 days. Lingling murmured against her skin, voice low and dangerous. Orm shivered. What? Lingling's lips trailed lower, teasing, punishing. 3 days, Orm. You made me wait. Orm gasped as Lingling bit down, just hard enough. Not on purpose. Liar. Orm swore her knees almost gave out, but Lingling wasn't done. She lifted Orm effortlessly, pressing her against the wall, pinning her there. Orm barely had time to react before Lingling's mouth was on hers again, hungry, demanding, consuming. Orm whimpered, gripping Lingling's shoulders, completely at her mercy. I should make you beg, Lingling whispered, lips grazing her ear, making her shudder. Orm's breath hitched. What if I already am? That was all it took. Lingling's control snapped. And Orm wouldn't have it any other way. Orm woke up in a bed so soft she was pretty sure she had died and gone to heaven. Correction, she had gone to Lingling's penthouse. And Lingling? Oh, Lingling was already up, already dressed, already looking like Sin in a silk robe. She stood, by the floor-to-ceiling windows, sipping coffee like she wasn't the reason Orm could barely move. Orm groaned dramatically, rolling onto her stomach. Ugh, I'm broken. You broke me. Lingling arched a perfect brow. You're still breathing, aren't you? Orm whimpered into the pillows. Barely. Lingling smirked. Then without warning, she pulled out her phone and made a call. Yes, she said smoothly, ignoring Orm's confused look. Send up breakfast. Orm perked up immediately. Lingling gave her a knowing look. Orm grinned. Breakfast in bed? You're spoiling me. Lingling hummed, setting her phone down. You're mine now. Of course I'll spoil you. Orm froze. Lingling smirked. Something wrong? Orm swallowed. I mean, I didn't think... Lingling tilted her head. Orm, you've invaded my life, caused utter chaos, ruined my business meetings, crashed my events, and somehow made me obsessed with you. Do you really think I'm letting you go now? Orm blinked, then grinned. Oh, she teased, sitting up, still wrapped in the expensive silk sheets. So you admit you're obsessed with me? Lingling rolled her eyes. Don't push it. Orm crawled across the bed, wrapping herself around Lingling like a koala. Too late. I'm your personal mess now. You said it yourself. Lingling sighed, but her hand still found Orm's waist, pulling her closer. You're insufferable. Orm kissed her neck, grinning. And you love it. A knock at the door interrupted them. Lingling pulled away just long enough to retrieve the lavish breakfast tray, setting it in front of Orm like a queen's feast. Orm gasped. Holy hell! Are those gold flakes on my pancakes? Lingling sipped her coffee. Only the best for my disaster. Orm melted. God, she sighed, taking a bite. I love being spoiled, Lingling smirked. You haven't seen anything yet. And the way she said it, Orm was in big, big trouble. But honestly, she couldn't wait. Orm was already living the dream, a ridiculously soft bed. A breakfast so fancy she almost felt guilty eating it. And Lingling? Oh, Lingling was absolutely doting on her, in her own smug, dangerously attractive way. But Lingling wasn't done, not even close. Because after breakfast, just as Orm was stretching like a lazy cat in silk sheets, Lingling casually dropped a bomb. We're going on vacation, she announced, like it was the most normal thing in the world. Orm, mid-sip of fresh orange juice, choked. Lingling didn't even blink. She just reached over, handed Orm a napkin, and waited. Orm coughed. Excuse me, what? Lingling smirked. You heard me. No, I heard you. I'm just struggling with the part where you suddenly decide to whisk me away like some rich villain in a romance novel. Lingling leaned in, trailing a finger under Orm's chin. Do you have any complaints? Orm's brain short-circuited. She had so many questions, but most importantly, where exactly are we going? She asked, squinting suspiciously. Lingling sipped her coffee. Maldives. Orm froze. Lingling set her cup down, unfazed. Private villa, oceanfront, personal chef. I already cleared my schedule for a week. Orm's jaw dropped. A week? A private villa? Lingling was truly spoiling her. Rotten! You absolute ridiculous, filthy rich, unfairly sexy woman, Orm spluttered. Are you serious? Lingling smirked, leaning in, her lips brushing against Orm's ear. Orm. Her voice was silk and sin. I haven't even started spoiling you. Orm died, right there, on the spot, because she was officially 100% absolutely Lingling's pampered, spoiled mess now, and honestly, she loved every second of it.